gathered together from the cosmic reaches of the universe. Here, in this great hall of the Signal Watch, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled. Join us as we discuss all manner of topics across the multiverse of comic books, history, creators, storylines, movies, and more. The Signal Watch podcast presents Kryptonian Thought Beast, a comics podcast series dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Signal Watch. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Steens, and with me this evening is...
Jamie.
And the cat,
Sadie. Sadie the cat.
We just watched...
Thor, Love and Thunder.
So yeah, we're continuing on covering the new releases from the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but not all the TV shows.
Yeah, as... ever since the pandemic, we're a few months late, obviously.
Right, yeah. It just recently hit Disney Plus streaming service as part of the Disney Plus Day or whatever. You may hear some cat chatter throughout this episode. The cat is circling us and meowing, and that's just going to be a fact of life. So, enjoy the cat.
She has opinions about this movie.
She has a lot of opinions about the movie she didn't watch. As did the internet.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that's actually where a good place to start. Is cats in general. No, the internet.
The movie Cats.
Yes. The internet led me to believe this movie was terrible. Danny led me to believe this movie. No, Danny didn't like Doctor Strange.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe he didn't like this too, but...
I feel like that was a bonus for me because I had zero expectations going in.
Right.
And while I don't think I liked it as much as Ragnarok, it's hard to tell. It was a different situation. We saw it opening weekend probably, in a packed theater. But I enjoyed it for the most part. And again, this is just first watch.
Yeah.
And usually, second or third, I have a different opinion. And I just watched it last night, so I haven't had that much time to think about it. But I enjoyed it more than I thought I would, I guess is my final answer.
Yeah, I did no research as to what people did not like about it. I don't think that's usually helpful for these things. Maybe it would be for y'all. If it is, let us know in the feedback.
I saw one thing that I will talk about later, unless you want me to talk about it right now.
Let's do it.
So one thing that I read was that because of the cancer storyline, they thought it was too jokey, and that made it inappropriate at sometimes. But I actually have some very strong feelings about that, I am a chronically ill patient. I'm not, a cancer patient. Those are two entirely separate things. But I kind of get through it by trying not to think about it and trying to not make jokes about it. But you and I are very light when we talk about my situation, when we talk about medical stuff. And that makes it easier for me. I'm not taking it seriously, but it helps a whole lot to be able to laugh and to be able to, live life while you're going through this. And that was my takeaway from it. So I kind of understand, I guess, where people are coming from, but that didn't bother me at all.
Yeah, I would argue that this movie is very much for middle-aged people.
Sure, yeah.
I think, or slightly older people than the usual, like, 20-somethings who came raised up on Marvel. This movie is a love letter from somebody to their children, which is not what you're expecting walking in. Mm-hmm. I saw some things about, it's a rom-com. You guys need to just realize that's what it is. And I think that's true. But it's about people who were in love and it fell apart years ago at this point. They say like eight years prior.
Yeah, I think it's a reference to that she was blipped. Because she says it's 3 years and he says it's 8 years.
Oh, I didn't catch that at all. I thought that was just a joke about him
count. Well, and it was, because he's very specific. He's like 8 years, 6 months, and 32 days or something.
Yeah, I think it could read as either. But
it works on both levels.
Yeah. But nonetheless, it's about people who were in the past. You will eventually, 20-somethings, have people who are in your past who you will reconnect with and have a very different relationship with them when you see them again. Mm-hmm. And it's about Thor eventually, spoiler, at the end of the film, becoming a father.
Yeah. And
it's about the villain is a father experiencing pain and lashing out. So it's Marvel's done a very, very good job for the most part of making you understand the villain's POV. And in this particular instance, I think they went above and beyond. And it doesn't hurt that Christian Bale is Christian Bale.
Yeah, I think they've done a better job recently. Like, the more recent villains have been really good. Killmonger, even Thanos, you kind of understood where he was coming from, even though it was psychotic. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this character, I completely understood. I mean, I don't really understand the situation at the very beginning of the movie where he's kind of in a desert with his daughter and they're both dying, and need water and food and whatnot. And he prays, I think, to his God, and she ends up dying. And then he stumbles onto his God after that, and he's so thankful. Can you bring my daughter back to life? I think he asks him that, or something of the kind. Or
he's just basically asking for answers.
Yeah, that's correct. And then the God is basically doesn't give a shit.
Right.
Very selfish and dickhole-ish, and so he's understandably very upset about that. And then the sword has a name, and I didn't catch it.
It's the Necro something.
Yeah, the God Killer or something. So it's his name. Yeah. But anyway, it seizes upon his anger and possesses him, essentially. I don't think he would have killed him without that influence. I don't think he was angry enough for that. Well, he also was supplied with a sword, when he was being choked. So,
yeah,
maybe. But that makes sense to me. I mean,
yeah, no, I mean it's dealing. I mean, for kind of the way Ragnarok did, for something that has like all this goofiness and jokes and all this, the stuff that's happening underneath it is all fairly weighty stuff. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's like people can't handle or don't like you can't be going around saying you're killing your gods at the same time you're doing screaming goat jokes. And I'm like, no, that is the perfect time.
Yeah,
you're doing a screaming goat joke.
Yeah.
But he basically takes it out on him, and then we flash back to how the Asgardians are doing.
Yeah.
Back on Earth.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back on my side. So I think he would have killed this god on his own power, but then I think it's the influence of the sword that causes him to go on the god-killing rampage. Because you can see, like, he's physically looks different.
Yeah.
It has infected him.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They don't ever really make that clear. I don't know if it's in a lot of ways, the God Butcher is a plot device. I mean, you understand his motivation, and that's all you really need to understand. He's not in the film a metric ton.
No, he's not. But I just want to jump on what you said. And Christian Bale is so good in this.
Yeah.
He's so good.
He's Christian Bale.
I know.
The guy's been knocking it out of the park since he was 10 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but yeah, there's a lot of things going on with, like, Thor's still hanging out with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and you see them kind of having Guardians of the Galaxy sort of misadventures.
That was another complaint that I saw, because someone said, it was more than one person, that they were disappointed that the Guardians weren't in it more. I'm like, really? Like, I knew they weren't going to be in it much. One, it's not a Guardians movie. And, like, two, they weren't in the trailer all that much. Like, he's going to be palling around at the beginning and then say goodbye.
I mean,
I was not surprised by that at all.
I think that's something that Marvel is really starting to have challenges with, and this is not the only one of their properties that I've seen. The basic complaint is, this is not what I was expecting or had in my head, and therefore it's wrong or bad. And that's not, by the way, an entirely invalid critique. That's just a thing that didn't happen when people were going to a movie and people were fighting their evil doppelganger, you know, when it's Tony Stark's fighting the Ironmonger, and then he's fighting other Iron guys,
yeah,
and then other Iron guys. You know, it was
the same movie.
I mean, it was basically working on a level that everybody basically could agree to and understand, and what didn't have the complexity of now, what is it, 16 years or something of Marvel movies, of 14 years of Marvel stuff, in all of those things interlocking, and people having various expectations as they come in. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know that that's a wrong critique, but I don't know how useful it is sometimes to come in and go, this strawberry soda is terrible. And you're like, well, it's orange soda. Yes, but it's terrible for strawberry soda, and that's what I had in mind. You know, it's not the same thing. And you can't expect everyone to kind of read between the lines and understand what they're going to be getting walking in. And Marvel at this point is also spinning off in all these different directions with, you know, you have your dark and gritty stuff, you know, with like Falcon and Winter Soldier, and which was, you know, a fairly intense sort of thing, and even WandaVision, and then Doctor Strange was fairly grim. But then you have something like this this is how you're going to get a Thor movie now. They're going to be yucking it up as they, you know, course through the spaceways. It works way better than Grim Thor from Thor 2.
Yeah, I mean, even though it wasn't to me as strong of a movie as Thor Ragnarok, and I think part of that is because Ragnarok was so unexpected and new, and so it felt fresh and surprising.
Yeah.
And of course you're not going to get that with this one because it's the second movie.
Yeah.
You've seen it before.
One of the things about this movie, one of the other things is it's also, I think people in their head, like, we kind of escalated to Endgame. Mm-hmm. And now, like, the TV shows have clearly taken it down a notch, but you're sitting at home watching a TV show that now has the sprawling feeling of that. But now you're getting back into the movies that you can't do Endgame every time. Right.
And there was really not much mythology in this one, if at all, like, or connection to the other movies.
To the Thor stuff, it was deeply interwoven.
To the Thor stuff, but to the larger, and I guess the Guardians were in it, but I mean, villain-wise, sometimes they do that. And this one was his own, it's kind of a standalone.
As it should be.
As it should be,
that should be the design,
It's not a critique. I mean, it's not a criticism, sorry.
Anyway, so you get back to Asgard, and Thor is running around with his pals, and then the Asgard, Valkyrie's clearly doing a great job of, she's turned.
New Asgard.
Yeah, and the New Asgard is now a big tourist destination, and they have cruise ships coming in, and they're selling stuff to people, and they're doing boat tours, and she's doing Old Spice commercials.
Yeah, and the play is back from Asgard with Matt Damon and
Luke Hemsworth.
Yeah.
And Sam Neill.
Sam Neill, yeah.
As Odin.
And Melissa McCarthy.
Melissa McCarthy.
As Hela.
Yes. Which I very much enjoyed. But and that actually makes me think, this movie has an astronomically sprawling cast.
Crazy.
Like, I can't imagine what happened when they looked at the script and were like, you've outlined like 75 individual characters with speaking parts. Mm-hmm. Like, it just moves and moves and moves, and you don't really realize while it's going on that it's doing that. But it 100% is. They're, you know, between all of the Asgardians, and you meet like Heimdall's significant other and his child, and
all Zeus's kingdom.
Yeah. Yeah, you get this like...
The dumpling god.
Bao. The dumpling god.
That may have gotten the biggest laugh from me in the movie.
But yeah, I mean, it's on a completely different scale than kind of what we've seen before from a single Thor movie. So in some ways,
you'd expect something like that from like Endgame when it's all the characters, but like all these side characters.
Yeah. And Russell Crowe gets to have the time of his life. You know,
he was great.
Yeah.
He was great. Apparently, he recorded that part doing a Greek accent, the whole thing, doing a Greek accent, and then separately doing a British accent.
Oh, interesting.
Because he wanted to do it Greek, and Taika wanted to cover his bases.
Sure.
Like, if this doesn't go right, we need to have a fallback plan. But he liked the result. So,
as did I.
I mean, it's a Greek god. It makes sense.
Yeah, no, I thought, for as many like Clash of the Titans type movies I've seen where the Greek gods are either speaking in a booming American accent or they're, it's Laurence Olivier playing Zeus. It was chef's kiss.
Yeah. I liked that he had a little tummy,
Yeah, that wasn't makeup.
No.
That's Russell Crowe in 2021.
Rocking the dad bod.
Yeah, he gets to. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any like real particular quibbles with the movie other than it kind of had glaring plot holes. And I felt a little bad because you did make me watch which I never want to do before we record
pitch meeting. I shouldn't have done that. I usually don't like to do that either. I had waited 3 months to watch it. And it wasn't even that good this time.
Yeah.
I was a little disappointed.
But yeah, I mean, it's definitely got some plot holes, and I don't know how much it's worth getting into them, but it doesn't particularly, the villain's plot doesn't particularly make sense.
Well, I thought it was interesting. They kind of, part of his plot was he's trying to lure Thor because he needs Thor's hammer. What's Stormbreaker. And so he gathers up all of the children of New Asgard to lure him. And I feel like you kind of needed that, or else you would be 100% almost on his side. You kind of understand what he's doing, but now you're bringing innocent kids into it, and that's not okay. So I don't know. I think that helped it along a little bit. And I don't know. I also kind of saw some criticism about, the end's stupid because Thor imbues the children with the powers of Thor and they get to fight. And I thought that was adorable.
Yeah, I mean, I liked it in the moment, but it definitely was something that later you're like, but why didn't he just give everyone the powers of Thor when they were fighting?
Oh, earlier?
Or in every other movie.
Yeah, that's a Good point.
Like, once you do that...
Yeah, and honestly, when it was happening, I was like, oh, he can do that? That's a thing he can do?
Well, and I feel like they could have at least said, like, because you're Asgardian children, you know, I can do this.
Well, and they were trying to sell the narrative this time, because this weaves into Jane Foster's story as well, that he can, it's like almost a wish granter, because he tells his hammer, you must watch over her always, or something to that effect. And then when she goes to New Asgard for help when she has cancer, the hammer is, comes to her to help her cure her cancer.
Yeah, I think there was some insinuation there.
There was, some connection there.
I mean, he's still a god. He still can do godly things. So
yeah. But to your point, he's not done that before. No, you think that would be real helpful.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I've not read the comics where Jane became Thor. I think I still have the issue where she does floating around somewhere in a long box trying to accumulate
I feel like I've
value.
seen that cover around the house.
Yeah. I mean, it's in a long box now, but like I've said before on the podcast, I'm not a Thor reader, and so I didn't really keep up with any of that. When the comics did it several years ago, there was speculation even then that, they need to have a backup in case Hemsworth's contract ends, and, they want to have some comic ideas that they can pull from instead of just recasting, which the Marvel Universe has been a little bit loath to do. But it was also seen at the time as woke. It's woke. And people stomped their little feet and balled up their little fists.
I'm sure there were people that, when this movie came out, or even when it was pitched, said that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know with this particular one, because Thor was still around. Mm-hmm. Thor was gallivanting elsewhere when Jane Foster became Thor, mm-hmm. I think in the comics, because she joined like a version of the Avengers and whatnot. I don't know. I mean, it comes out of a period where Marvel was just kind of doing this all the time, where like it's the same period that generated Sam Wilson as Captain America. Mm-hmm. And I can understand how people got their noses in a little bit of out of joint. Well, that's the phrase I'm looking for.
If it kept happening, and they wanted to see their, original heroes, I can kind of understand.
Yeah, and that was kind of, for some people, like, it was like, well, I signed up to read about, Thor.
And if that's not available, I mean, it's one thing to have, like Superman does and Batman does, where you have the original, original storyline, or stem from that, and then your side characters, Superman's son, whatever, what have you, that's something different. But if it's a replacement, I think is the issue that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, they've always done it in comics. It's not like it's entirely new. There's been various Manhunters. There's been various I'm trying to think of another character immediately. Wildcat, who's now the Wildcat on the Stargirl TV show, is the female version instead of, I always almost say Lou Grant instead of Ted Grant, and as amazing as it would be,
very different people.
Yeah. But instead of Ted Grant, and that's kind of, that never even really took in the comics, but I think that if you kind of set up something like the Stargirl TV show has done, where it's this whole generational thing, it's a little easier to, but it's another thing when you're like, oh, you're just kind of replacing this to see what happens because sales, essentially. And I can get a little bit of that, but I think being cynical about sales instead of stomping your little feet because it's a girl is always a little silly.
Yeah.
Because I honestly, there was a little window there where it was looking like, thanks to the Siegel lawsuit, we might lose Clark Kent as Superman for a hot minute. And I was like, this is going to be interesting because I ain't reading that, whatever they're going to do. But yeah, I it was great to have Natalie Portman back. She seemed to be having a lot of fun.
I did want to talk about her because, yeah, I'm glad she got to come back. I didn't dislike her characters, like she's a twin or something. Her character in the first two. I liked her on her own. I didn't, there was something about the way they did their relationship that just didn't work for me. But her palling around with, what's her face?
Tessa Thompson?
No. I was talking about in the original. What's her little sidekick?
Darcy.
That was cute to me. And honestly, I just have bad taste in my mouth for the second movie, and it has nothing to do with her. It's just the whole thing. So I was really happy that she got to come back in this and be a great character. I mean, this was a wonderful story for her. I mean, it had a sad ending, but I mean, if you're going to go out, that's how you do it. And I think that was a really important message for the whole cancer storyline of he didn't want her to come with him on this because the hammer was giving her power, yes, but it was also draining her energy and making the cancer intensify.
Spending too many spoons, man.
So basically it's like if she goes on this, last hurrah with him, she's gonna die. So he doesn't want her to go, and she basically is laying out, if I don't go with you, I've got 2 or 3 more months of this. And she's, laying in a bed with a needle in her arm. And I mean, I 100% get that. Like that feeling. A guy I used to work with, I wasn't very close with him, but Facebook friends. And so he had a really serious case of cancer about 5 years ago. And got to the point where they basically said, chemo's not doing you any good anymore. And he wrapped it up and said, I am going on the road with my family. And I'm just going to travel for as long as I can. And he did that. And I would see pictures on Facebook for months after that, about 3 or 4 months. And he looked like he was having the time of his life. Yeah. And that was it. But that's how he spent his life. That's how we wrapped it up. And so I'm glad that she did that, and I'm glad that the death stuck. And I'll say that because it would have been really easy for them to have gone, oh, well, Odin brought her back to life or something. It's a fantasy. They could have done that, but I think it's more impactful because, in real life, people don't get to do that.
She came back in the comics.
Okay, I'm not going to say she's not going to come back because this is Marvel, but for this movie, I'm glad they wrapped it up like that.
Well, and that was, I had the same thought. Like, I didn't want to throw it as a criticism about a movie that's not been written or shot yet. Was basically, they're like, oh, we suddenly have a Thor franchise that we've not had before. And they brought her back as a Valkyrie.
Okay.
Speaking of, they also brought back Jamie Alexander as Sif for 3 scenes or something like that.
Yeah. Which was great because she was just not in the last movie and no one even said her name, I don't think. Or did they? I can't remember.
She hasn't been in the movies in forever. I don't think she was even in the second one.
I don't remember.
She ran off to go do the tattoo show on NBC or whatever.
Okay.
But yeah, I really liked her in the first film. So, that show's over. She's got free time again, apparently. And it was good to see her kind of come back. And they can do whatever they want to with her now.
I really liked that scene. It was a very short scene with her, but she was like, no, let me die. If I die in battle, I get to go to Valhalla. He's like, but you didn't die in battle. You died after the battle. Or you were going to die after the battle. She's like, take me with you. That was fantastic.
Yeah. So Jane ends up in Valhalla at the end in the second credit sequence.
And see, it's Heimdall.
Yeah.
I didn't expect him to be there. That's awesome.
So, I mean, they can go either way. They can do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. It's superhero movie stuff. Taika Waititi, I think remains a really good director. I heard some like, oh, he's over after this. And I don't know what literally don't know what people are talking about.
Yeah, I don't either.
Like, what is he not doing well? Like, I don't, like, okay, maybe you're talking about the writing, and that's not the directing. And, his name's on the script, but I guarantee you it's a Marvel movie. A lot of people had their hands on that script. I think it's a well-directed film, and I don't really, I'm incredibly forgiving of these movies. I'm well aware of that. But at the same time, I'm just kind of like, when you see a badly directed film, you kind of know it. And I'm like, the actors were all acting their parts. They seemed to have motivation. Things were well shot.
I actually thought that scene at the end when they were on the dark planet to be really cool. When it shifted to black and white.
I was a little surprised they were able to sell Marvel on that.
Really?
Yeah. I don't know what it was like in the comics or if that's how it happened in the comics.
It was only 10 minutes at the most.
Yeah, but it was really dark, and it was going to be hard to follow. But they managed to keep, like all the Marvel movies, you're able to follow the action. One of the things I kind of appreciated about it too was while there were, instead of having like one long supervillain fight that lasts way the hell too long, like 20 minutes. I think Wonder Woman kind of trained everybody, don't do that. This instead broke it up into kind of two completely separate fights. And I think in the end that was a really a pretty solid idea. But yeah, I'd be happy to hear from people on the feedback as to like, tell me what I'm not seeing as to how this was ineptly directed. We can talk about the writing and how there were plot holes for sure.
Yeah.
I think there were.
Yeah, it wasn't a perfect movie for sure, but I had a lot of fun watching it.
Yeah. But I also didn't walk into it like we were saying at the beginning.
I had really zero expectations and pretty much had not been spoiled at all except for that. What's his face? Roy Kent. What's Roy Kent's name?
I'm gonna let you figure it out. Real time.
Brett something. Oh my god, there's too many people in this movie.
I know.
Oh no. I think I already went past him. He won an Emmy last night too. Oh my god. I can't find it.
Brett Goldstein.
Brett Goldstein. God, sorry, Brett Goldstein. I had been spoiled that he was in it, and I knew it was an in-credits scene, but that has zero relevance to the plot.
Yeah.
Ryan was like, oh my god!
Yeah, I'm not like a huge Hercules fan, but I know kind of his place in the Marvel U, and it'd be a very different take. I was expecting, but Thor kind of already fills that space in the Marvel Cinematic Universe of being like a really jolly, like, dope.
Yeah.
So I think kind of going for another take of a different kind of dope might be a good move. But yeah, no, Twitter's crazy. That's all I know is like I read people's reactions to things and them being like mad about stuff like Space Goats.
Oh, I loved the Space Goats.
I just can't get on board with being mad about Space Goats.
I thought that was so funny and so cool. I loved the Viking boat and the goats and the rainbow propulsion.
Yeah.
That visual all together with the goats screaming was just mwah. I want to see a whole movie of that.
Like I said, I think this movie's made for middle-aged people.
Probably.
And it's if you're looking for something that's going to take your superheroes like on a dark and serious path, you have
Go watch Thor 2.
or you watch Batman.
Oh right, yeah.
You've got your Robert Pattinson Batman that'll definitely serving up that you can feel like this is very serious as the man in his bat costume runs around. I don't know.
Also, if you expected anything different after watching Ragnarok, like.
I think Ragnarok had the like big battle on the bridge, and it had the kind of like people getting stabbed, and this didn't even have that. Like all of the violence happens off screen in this movie. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Except for Thor beating the owl guys, with the design of which was amazing.
They almost look like Muppets.
Yeah, they looked. I wouldn't be shocked if they were puppets. I mean, I can see them putting like big owl heads on people. But yeah, I mean, what's not to like? A bunch of grumpy Gusses.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, not really. I mean, I'll echo the thing about like if you are getting like offended like because someone's having an adventure, like you'd already talked about this plenty, but that kind of gets my goat even hearing that was people's issue was like, oh well, she was sick, so we should have all just like been sad and bowed our heads and
yeah, no,
like
and I know I have a different perspective on it, but I 100% agree with what they did with this.
Yeah. Anyway, so we'll go with some of the stuff Danny always wants to talk about. How hot were the people?
Oh, very.
Yeah.
You know what? It was funny. So I can't remember what on YouTube I was watching, but there was a clip of Chris Hemsworth from the first Thor movie. Mm-hmm. And I was like, dang, I did not find him attractive in that movie. And I don't know what it was. If it was his acting, if it was the haircut probably that was different. But he's like super hot now. And I don't know if it's probably like the character change too. But I don't know. It's so weird. Like it was just almost, I can't remember if it was a still image or not. But he's just not attractive to me there. And he is in this. It was weird.
You love a muscular, hilarious guy, much like your husband.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you got the Natalie Portman, and she was super buff in this, and I'm sure some of it's CG. Oh, I did want to talk about that, because I did see a very short behind-the-scenes thing, because they have to make her, when she's the mighty Thor, taller.
Okay.
Right? Because she's literally a foot shorter than Chris Hemsworth, and there's only so much that boots can do.
Yeah.
Right? You can't put her in, like,
I will say,
6-inch heels.
I am 6'5". In 1998, I was standing outside a theater about to go in to see Les Mis, and Natalie Portman was doing Anne Frank next door. She was playing Anne Frank, and she ran by. She is so small.
She's 5'3".
Oh my God, and she's skinny.
Yeah.
So it was. She's like three apples high.
They had beef up her arms, so I mean, I'm sure she worked out.
Yeah.
But it was a lot, and she had to go back and forth between her physique. So I'm sure some of it was beefed up.
I'd heard it was not CGI.
Really? Because when she's standing next to Chris Hemsworth,
they
it
may
was
have
huge
grown
arms.
her, but I think the arms were her.
Whoa. Okay.
You just eat. Well, she's vegetarian, so God knows what she's eating a lot of beans, probably.
Because her arms were huge. Yeah. Anyway, the height thing. When they're doing the walk and talk, they built her a runway.
Yeah.
So she's like on a platform walking next to him, which I think is hilarious.
Well, I couldn't do Hollywood. All the actors are too short. I would be towering over
You would have had to play a goon or something.
A goon. I would have liked playing a goon.
Yeah. I mean, there's some actors that are that tall, but not many.
No. What's his name? Oh, God. Never mind. Me and Doug Jones would be running around together.
Then you got the Tessa Thompson. She's easy on the eyes.
Yeah, there ain't nothing wrong with Tessa Thompson.
God, what other dudes were in this movie?
Russell Crowe. Korg.
I mean, come on.
Well, yeah.
eh,
You had some Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I've never been that attracted to Chris Pratt just because he's so goofy. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah,
The movie made $758 million worldwide. I don't know how it did on action figure sales and the other things that DC does an absolute shit job on that Marvel does a good job on. I personally have a Jane Foster Thor floating around.
I'm sure you do.
Of course I do. And
You may call me the Mighty Thor, or you may call me Dr. Jane Foster. I loved that line. And, I know I talked a little bit about I was glad that they brought her back, but she does die in this. But she's actually in a, I mean, aside from being too young, and it's tragic, but she's in a good place in her life, and they go to not lengths, but they do show that she's very accomplished in her career. You know, she's got, when she's doing chemo, the guy next to her's reading her book.
yeah.
And she gets
Yeah,
to,
she's
like,
kind of the Stephen Hawking of
Yeah.
the MCU.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that's all I wanted to say about that. What else? Yeah, so I talked about Christian Bale a little bit and how good a job I thought he did, but at the very end, it's just so touching because he asks for his daughter to come back. He gets this like one wish, and I wasn't clear on the whole plot behind what he's trying to do. I think originally he was going to ask for all the gods to be eliminated. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
it was pretty simple. Yeah, but it did raise the question of if you've always been able to get. I mean, clearly Thor didn't know he could just use his magic axe and go meet the genie god thing.
Yeah.
Eternity's in the comics, in theory. I have never seen Eternity in a comic. I've seen Eternity in the Marvel Handbook of the Universe, and it looked just like that. By the way, just like Kirby horns and stars.
It was a cool look.
Yeah. So I was like, but it gives me hope that they're going to have the courage. And as I say, every third podcast, they'll have the courage to finally do Galactus properly.
Part of me kept thinking that I was going to see Galactus in this one, but it didn't happen.
We saw Celestials.
Yeah,
For
sure
a
did.
hot second.
Anyway, we're getting sorry. I wanted to talk about Christian Bale's last scene.
Oh.
He ends up asking for his daughter to come back to life, and he's like, "I'm dying," but then this is how Thor becomes a dad. And I thought it was very, very touching that not only do you see him regain his humanity before he dies, but he's such a damn good actor.
Yeah.
Because get to see him say goodbye to his daughter, and it's just like, oh, tugs at the heartstrings.
For this guy who's just murdering people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. But anyway, so that's actually Chris Hemsworth's daughter, who plays his adopted daughter. And then you see them go on adventures together. And I can't remember why she has superpowers. Is it because she came from this?
I don't know why she has superpowers. I have not a clue.
Yeah.
I don't think
That
this
was-
character exists in the comics that
That was
I'm aware of.
unclear to me. But they seem to insinuate at the end of the movie that they are Love and Thunder.
They are, yes.
Because she was born of her father's love.
Yeah.
Recreated from her father's love. So, yeah.
You mentioned to me last night that the Hemsworth children...
Yeah. So apparently his I read somewhere that his sons played young Thor. There's a running sequence in which he's like progressing through age, and so they're in that. But I only in the credits saw one Hemsworth name as a boy, so I don't know if they were it was just wrong and there's just one of them, or.
I also noticed there's an infant in the movie, or a baby. And I noticed the last name on that baby is Chapek, which is the name of the Disney CEO. So I'm assuming that's either a grandchild or Bob has a second family he's working on right now. But yeah, so then when I say like I think this movie is really like kind of like a love letter to the kids, you know, sometimes that when people get older, that starts happening as they're making movies, right? They're like, who is this Thor movie for? Is it for the 12-year-olds and 10-year-olds in the audience? Or is it for the 47-year-old or 30-year-old sitting in the audience?
Yeah.
And Marvel's done a really good job of kind of playing all sides of that. People take their kids to Captain America Civil War, whether that's appropriate or not. But I think that this one, they definitely were trying to do something about parental love and these kinds of things, which is when you think you're coming into like this romantic comedy, I think could throw some people off. But that's why I liked personally the stuff of like the children have the power, and then you get to watch kids be little gods, and it was super fun.
Well, yeah, and it's such a progression. I mean, at some point you have to pass the mantle, and you have to become a teacher.
Yeah.
And one thing that made me feel really stupid, actually, that it didn't catch on was that was Heimdall's son that he kept talking to after they had been captured.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, this kid has a weird power to be able to talk to Thor. And it's like, he's got the eyes, one, but also like, yeah, Heimdall could do that.
I'm going to take a minute and rant,
okay.
if I can.
Please do.
Twitter nerds, I saw you complaining about the CGI, about Axel's head floating, and apparently it looked different in the theater, and you're like, oh, it looks so much worse now. Literally, what the do you want? I literally don't know what's the matter with you. Like, I don't know what the effect you had in your head that was so perfect was. I'm so baffled by this particular complaint. Like, I don't know what's the matter with you. Enjoy a thing. Like, it was a 3-second scene. And you guys lost all day on Thursday last week talking about this. And I was like, this must be super important. This effect must just be an absolute travesty to all of us.
I didn't even notice anything.
No, you didn't, because you're not an idiot. You're not. This CGI does not quite fit the bill for me. As I scratch my neck beard, I don't know what's the matter with people now. We've all gone crazy. You've been given too much.
Yeah.
Like, I came up on like rubbery monsters where you clearly were like, that's a Muppet.
We had guy in suit and we liked it.
Yeah. That effect would have been like a clearly badly green screen shimmery thing. And if you saw that now in like a Spielberg movie from the 80s, you guys would all be wetting yourselves going, oh, how did they do that back then? They must have used early CGI. It's like, no, they used practical effects and we liked it. We loved it. Anyway. End of rant.
Okay.
But oh my God, that got my goat. When I actually saw the scene and saw what it was, and it's fine.
I didn't notice anything.
Of course you didn't. Of course you didn't. Anywho, I don't know how I'd feel about it if I'd paid, $30 to see it in the theater, and
yeah, I don't either.
Because that's not what's happening in our lives right now. It's a lot easier to just not care when it's months later and you've spent no money.
I had a good time watching it.
Yeah,
it was free.
It was free. Anyway,
Andre liked it.
Andre has been over here bullying us for attention for 10 minutes. If you've heard
jangling,
dog chain jangling. I'd be remiss if I didn't talk a little bit about the music, I guess, before we check on out of here.
The Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, I have a feeling you and I had very different reactions to Guns N' Roses.
No, I do. Honestly, like, I do not mind Guns N' Roses at all. Here's my relationship with that kind of music. It was very popular when I was a kid. I didn't mind it, but it wouldn't be like something I chose to put on my CD player.
Okay.
Sorry, it would have been tape player at the time.
Yeah.
Getting
Well,
ahead of myself.
You could have been an early adopter. I don't know what you did.
I was not. I had a CD player in '91. Anyway, so that's.
But you didn't have an appetite for destruction.
I didn't love it, but I appreciate it, and I think it's fun. I think it's fun in moderation, and I thought it worked really well here.
So my plans to blast some GNR through the rest of the week is not...
Well, I've had Sweet Child of Mine in my head since we watched this movie.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I was a bit of a Guns N' Roses fan. I had their records, or their tapes in middle school and high school, so... I wasn't really tuning into that was a thing, that was going to be the musical selection. And I like that they used a lot of their songs, or some of their bigger hits.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of, like, thematically, like, some of the metal stuff, the design of it is kind of like... I equate it with, like, 80s stuff, and I also, some of the, like... Thor imagery can also be like 80s a little bit in my head.
So when we saw John Carter, which we'll podcast John Carter for y'all's pleasure one day, one of the things that I thought that movie was missing, which should give you a hint as to how this podcast is going to go, was it needed a screaming guitar solo.
Yeah.
Which Flash Gordon delivers on. And maybe that left too much of an impression on me as a kid, was like the Queen, like, as they're, the rockets coming in and there's lasers going everywhere. Like, certain things start getting triggered in my head of this is appropriate. And Guns N' Roses blasting as, like, the goat boat comes, like, flying through into the gods, the Pantheon thing. That I am a middle-aged man, and I will stick to my idea that this is a movie for middle-aged men. I very much appreciated the Guns N' Roses that they used.
I would say middle-aged people, because
sure.
I was... It wasn't a girl thing that I wasn't super in love with Guns N' Roses.
No, I knew girls who were the super fans. Anyway, I just wanted to make sure we covered that before we checked out.
Sure.
All right. Well, I think that's it for the podcast. So, any final thoughts? Anything you want to add on at this point?
I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Well, if you have any questions, comments, you have anything to tell us about why you loved Thor, why you hated Thor, why that CGI wasn't working for you?
Why we were wrong.
Well, we were wrong. You guys never give us feedback. We're just here in this, like, void. It's just...
So we're going to assume that we're right.
Right. And
you all agree with us.
And you could be shaking your fist in your car as you're listening to this, or as you're, like, folding laundry, going, those two morons. And we're like, blissful ignorance. We know nothing. So,
you got to tell us.
You got to tell us. All right. Have a great one.
Bye.
that about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed the podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. We'd love to hear from you, so find us online and let us know what you think. Whether you prefer email, blog comments, or social media, we'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies, you've got to be kind.